Today's show is sponsored by the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers. Our club promotes the sport of fly fishing by holding seminars and educational events, participating in conservation projects, and working closely with other organizations. And we really love to go fishing. If you'd like more information about fly fishing or like to attend one of our free monthly meetings, visit this website or call our phone number.
Hi, I'm Todd Wilm with Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers. Welcome to Fishing on the Fly. We have an interesting show for you today. It's all about fly tying. But before you get nervous and turn us off, please give us a chance. You know, we're gonna teach you. It's not all about just fly fishing. This is going to be covered all aspects of fishing with fly tying related to that. And I promise you, by the time we're finished, you'll be entertained and hopefully you will learn something. Before we go any farther, we have a guest, Chris Niehaus. Please, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. He's an avid sportsman. He has his own hunting and fishing show.
Well, Todd, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. I'm 45 years old, and thanks to my dad, I've been hunting and fishing all my life. I do a show called Backwoods Outdoors since 2003. We do a lot of hunting and fishing. I belong to Four Seasons Bow Hunters, a sponsor of our show. We've gone from about 5 members to 51 members, do a lot of bow shooting, 3D target shooting, a lot of hunting. But I'm a big fisherman too. And like a lot of sportsmen, you know, I've fished with pole and reel, but not necessarily fly fishing. I've never done that before, and I'm real interested in learning more. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Well, hopefully we can help out with that. We're going to talk about flies, you know, various flies or various species, local water stuff, salt water, cold water, whatever you want to talk about. We're going to talk about tools, devices, and some basic materials to do it. At the end of the show, we're going to tie some simple flies. And, you know, I've got enough equipment. Hopefully you can tie along with me.
I could even do it myself.
There you go. We're going to try it.
Sounds good.
You told me before that you do a lot of warm water fishing. And what I mean by warm water fishing is warm water species, bass, crappie, bluegill, carp, catfish, anything like that. So let's look at a few of those right off the bat. This is a weighted fly that it's got a lot of fluid movement in it. You can see it's on a jig hook, a bent style jig hook. It's got a weighted cone up front. It's got some flash to it, and it's got some rabbit tail in it. It's a good warm water, you know, species. It's kind of like almost like a spin caster's version of a jig.
I was going to say it looks like a pig and jig.
Yeah,
I've got a pig and jig in my tackle box with those same colors.
Yeah, I'm sure. The only thing that typically you don't do in fly fishing is we don't put the pig on the back of the fly. it just doesn't work out for us that well.
But that's a bass lure, huh?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And then we have. I know you expressed you like the mouse.
I thought
pattern
that little
there.
guy was so
this
cool.
This is another. That's another bass pattern. Mice are great patterns to tie for bass. Really, you know, any kind of. That's a good late summer.
I was going to say,
they're hitting on the top.
Summertime, hot weather, even early morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. You're going out there. Now, how do you work this across the top of the water? Just pop it?
Just strip it across the water. What in fly fishing we kind of move the line instead of the tip of the rod itself. So.
And I see that this is weedless.
Yes, it is, and that's a lot of the warm water flies that are tying. They do weedless now because we have the same problem that, you know, baitcasters and spincasters are having. It's just you get hung up and it's a lot worse on a fly line because we lose our stuff.
What else you got here?
Well, we've got a crawfish pattern.
I love this guy. I mean, he looks so realistic. He's got the claws up there, and the colors are so good.
That's a great pattern.
Now, these guys generally, when they walk in real life, they walk backwards.
Yes.
How do you work this one?
We just, the same thing, we just kind of strip it across the surface like we would the mouse or, you know, any of our other patterns. We have to, you know, since we don't really have the rod tip action that spin casting and bait casting has, we have to animate the flies with our hands. So it could be just, you know, winding via our fingers, or we could strip it in fast, slow, whatever, you know, whatever we find that works.
I was going to say,
with, you know, just a basic reel setup.
Okay, because a lot of times guys, and I'm very guilty of this, will work the lure back too fast. It's all in the presentation. You don't stop it enough if you're doing a wounded bait fish.
Yes.
A lot of times the fish is going to pick up the bait when it stops.
Yeah.
And I would think with a fly, when you're fishing with a fly rod, you'd probably be able to fish a little slower maybe.
Yeah, because it's all with your hand. You don't, you know, you're really not using the rod as much as you are. Like I said, everything's in your hand, and you have your hand on the line constantly, so you feel everything.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. What else you got there?
Got some smaller patterns here. This is another crawfish. Good crappie, good smallmouth pattern. It's got some brass eyes on it.
You know, I like that. I like to fish for crappie a lot, and as I said, I like to fish Popeye jigs,
Yes.
tipped with a little crappie nibble or anything, and they just go crazy for those things.
Yeah.
You say this is good for crappie,
It's
huh?
great for it. And one of the things, I've got this one, I've got another one I'm going to show you. You see how the eyes are tied on the top? When as that happens, the fly will actually sink like this with
Okay.
the eyes put it down. So you get kind of the leg action
Oh, I
of
gotcha.
the crawfish, and then you've got the claws out here as you strip it back.
That's really cool. Now, do you ever, I've never thought of this, do you ever put any attachments to the, I guess that would mess with the weight a little bit?
Yeah, typically you don't.
Okay.
The only time you really tie in like that when you're fly fishing is if you could actually tie another fly in behind it, and that's not uncommon at all.
Really?
You just tie right into the bend of the hook. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yes.
Because, you know, a lot of times if I'm fishing a worm, for example, I may fish what we call stinger hooks.
Okay. Yes.
You might have a regular hook, but then
Yes.
if they're biting light, hitting at the back,
Yes.
you put one at the
Yeah.
back to try to snag those light biting fish. You can do that here too?
Yes, you can. I would put like an unweighted pattern behind that. You know, come off of it a foot or so.
A whole foot.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just drop it behind it, and you know you're looking for a secondary strike.
That's cool. That's cool. What else you got for me?
We've got another little warm water. This is a good pattern that I use for smallmouth. It's got some fox fur. It's really heavily weighted. It's got some big eyes on it.
Yeah, it's got some
some
weight to
rubber legs.
Yeah, like a
Yeah, and
skirt.
it's got some. You see some copper style flash there.
That's pretty
Gives a
cool.
little illustration in the water.
Good deal. And this is good for smallmouth, I guess,
Yes, it
because of
is.
the color.
Yeah,
And you say
smallmouth and
crappie?
largemouth. Yeah.
Crappie will
Yes.
even hit on it. Okay.
The and here's this is a bass popper here. This is the fly
That looks kind of
fisherman's
familiar, I
version.
was
Yeah,
going to
that's
say.
that can be used in salt water too, as big as it is.
Yeah, I was going to say it's pretty big hooks, but it's
Yes,
number 2 hook or
yes,
so?
it is. Yes.
That's pretty. I like that. They're too pretty to use, man.
Yeah,
They're great.
That's what you tie them for. Let's go to some cold water stuff. We've got this is a steelhead pattern, and it may look like a saltwater style shrimp in the water as
Oh, okay.
it flows. It's
Yeah.
made out of it's a marabou, a really fluid in the water. You can see how light and fluffy it is. It has some flash. You know, if anything, it's a reactionary strike style fly too. It just
Okay.
might anger something that's near its bed or something.
That's great. I mean, when you're fishing for bass, a lot of times they're not biting. They're just
Yes.
pushing that,
Yeah.
whatever it is that's
Yeah.
attacking their
That's
bed.
right.
Good deal. What else you got? Well, these are little.
Another pattern used. This is another steelhead salmon pattern. This is a nymph style. Like we were talking, dropping flies off the back of another fly. This is when you could do that.
I like that. Now, that's got a little bit of a jig head on it,
Yes,
basically
yeah.
like a Popeye jig or something, and you can put whatever you want, make it
Yeah.
look like whatever you want.
It's really weighted. That fly is designed to get down on the bottom. You know, and just
Let me ask you this. One of the big things now, if you're throwing a crankbait, for example, is to use red-colored hooks to
Okay.
simulate maybe a wounded fish, a little bit of blood there. Do you ever do that with any of these? This has got a pink head to it. So
Yes, yeah. There's a couple manufacturers now that are doing colored hooks, but it really hasn't hit fly fishing that much. But there's a pattern I'm going to show you a little later on where we'll actually put the red and the gill plates in it, and
Cool.
that might be one we tie a little later on.
All right. What else you got? Well, that was light.
This is a dry fly pattern here. This is it's a Kaufman stimulator, and really, like I said, really doesn't replicate anything, but it kind of replicates everything at the same time. You know, you've got any kind of bug on the surface of the water. See how light it is? That's going
Yeah.
to float really high in the water.
Well, like a little water bug.
Yes,
Just
water
barely-
bug.
they come up
You know,
and
depending on the angle, it can look like a grasshopper in the water. It's just got all this leg action and stuff going on to it.
Now, I got to ask you this because I'm guilty of this too. If I'm fishing a top water bait,
Okay.
I see that fish react to it, and they come up, and sometimes I just with a
Yes,
rod
yeah.
like I'm fishing with, I'm pulling it right out of its
Pull
mouth.
it out of their mouth.
How do you have to worry about slacking your line, or what do you
No,
do?
well, in fly fishing, you do worry about a lot of slack in your line. But the biggest thing is like as I said before, you have your hand on the line the whole time. So you can feel a take, and you might feel a soft take too. You're going to pull a few out of its mouth. It's the same thing, but
Yeah.
hopefully you get a good hookup.
That's cool. Thanks.
And I've got a couple here. We're not going to take out of the box because they're so small.
They are tiny.
These are some trout style patterns, and I mean they're down to these are size 22s and smaller hooks, just miniature things that are really hard to see
Little
on the
bitty
water.
bugs. Now, would fish have a tendency to swallow the hook on this?
No, they do not. And there's a couple clubs in the U.S. now, and the big thing is they have like the 20-20 club, and that's catching a 20-inch trout on a number 20 hook. Or,
Really?
yeah, they'll have it. these different designations for that. It's become a really big deal to catch large fish on really small hooks.
Wow, that's a challenge for sure. What type of, what pound test line are you using
On something
these?
like this, because the eye's so small, you're down to 2 and 3 pound.
When you're catching a big trout on that, no
Yeah,
wonder that's
it's
a
just,
challenge.
well, it's a challenge. You make sure you've either got good knots or you play the fish well, and or it breaks it off. But that stuff happens too. And the last pattern we've got a saltwater pattern here, and hopefully we're going to tie one of these today. And this is just a bait fish. It's a synthetic material that is available in just a ton of different colors, and you can tie this is like sort of replicating a local shad pattern. You can tie sculpins, whatever you want. Now, you were talking about colors before, and in this one here, we've actually tied the gills in it.
Oh, wow.
So you got a little red there.
I can see that, but it is in there, right down this area.
Yes, yeah.
Right back behind the eye.
He's got some eyes on it, and this is really fluid in the water. This fly really looks good in the water as it's being
Now,
stripped
some of my
across it.
Popeye jigs kind of go flat.
Okay.
This guy looks like Don King. Does he go flat
Yeah,
in the water?
no, this fly, it'll because you're casting it with a fly rod, it gets a little tangled, but there's a little comb, believe it or not, that you use.
Really?
And every so many casts, you pull it out of the water and you comb this fly down.
You don't let anybody else see you doing that, do you?
No,
Combing your fly?
it's a miniature comb,
Okay,
so it
all right.
wouldn't work anywhere else, but it does look pretty good. Chris, let's talk about some materials. Materials, tools, and vices. Well, just some basic stuff. I've got 2 different types of vices here. I've got a regular, just a basic vise with a clamp style jaw. You just grab it and
Got a spring in it. I like that.
it's got a spring, and it actually has a groove cut in it that grabs the hook. Weighted base, both of these vices can be done, like this, or they can be bolted
Okay.
or clamped to
Like
the
your regular
tabletop. Yeah, they have a
workbench
regular
vise.
clamp system for them. Both of them have a bobbin rest, which is the thread holder. When you're putting a new material on,
Okay.
you hang your bobbin off the front of it. I also have things called fly stages on these. There's some foam products that allow you to hang hooks off of it, or like maybe completed or partially completed flies if you have some epoxy or some other stuff drying on
Like
them.
you would in your boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this other vise, this is a rotary vise, and it has a different style's jaw. Instead of just grabbing it, it has a cam jaw. So
Like a vice grip.
yeah, just like a vice grip, up and down a little bit. They both have different types of what they call material holders or material rests. This one's got a spring like vertically, and this one horizontally goes all the way around it. And with the longer material, you just lay it in there and keep it.
Okay,
It just keeps
gotcha.
it from flowing all over the vise. This is also a rotary vise, so you can materials and bodies that are wound on there. You just
Sure.
just spin it and let it go,
Makes it a lot easier.
and that's pretty much it for vices. They're pretty much basic stuff.
Okay. What else you got for me?
Let's see, we've got bobbin. We talked about a bobbin before. It just holds the thread. That's all it does. Its pressure applies, well, the pressure applied to the spool itself just allows it the tension so it doesn't free spool and it just doesn't unwind itself. This one is a ruby tip, what they call it. I don't know if you can see, it's got a really small red tip in it. And that just kind of protects the thread. There's ceramic, there's ruby, and then there's ones that are just a metal style tube. The problem with them is they have a tendency to wear out, or they'll wear a groove in them, and that groove will actually chafe the thread. And this is a pretty fine thread here. So
It's
you-
like
you
the eye
chafe
on your
it.
fishing pole.
Yeah, you chafe it, and
Same
it
principle.
just has a tendency to want to break your thread. And in the middle of a fly, it makes for kind of a mess.
Oh, sure.
And just some scissors, they're just a smaller style scissor. This is a heavier scissor for like deer hair and things like
Okay.
that, like heavier products. And this is a really small
Very
pair of
sharp.
scissors. Yeah, they are. They're you only use them for fly tying. You don't let the kids or the wife cut construction paper and
Okay.
things like that with it. Bodkin, nothing more than a needle,
Okay.
and that allows you to separate materials.
Gotcha.
You get the guide back on it here. It keeps you
Sheath.
poking yourself.
What's your sheath?
Whip finishing tool. And all this does is this aids in finishing a fly. Yeah, if you bring that vise over, we'll, as we're finishing our fly, we go to what they call the head of the fly. And if you see this, you can see the thread that's wound around there.
Very
Well,
tight.
this just winds the thread from the bobbin and puts the knot in it.
Okay.
And then you cut it clean and
You're
finish
ready
the
to
head
go.
with whatever you want.
I like it.
Let's move on to some materials. We've got a body style material called dubbing. You know, most flies, their bodies are referred to as a dubbing style or whatever, you know, you make the fly out of. This is a synthetic material. You know, most people think of flies, if you look at the old style flies, they were very exotic animals and a lot of stuff that's on the endangered species list that
don't
you're
wanna
not
use
allowed
that.
to tie anymore. There's a lot of things you can't import to the U.S. that you can get in foreign countries. And this is just just kind of a flashy,
Synthetic,
kind
lot
of
of
wild
flash.
looking, different colors and stuff. This is a natural. This is a pheasant rump.
All right, great.
I mean,
Beautiful.
look at those colors we
Oh,
got
it's
there.
gorgeous.
You just have some beautiful feathers. I mean, you've got some great barbs there. Some good looking color. Makes a nice leg material.
Very good. Beautiful.
We've got a synthetic material that it's the same material that the bait fish pattern is tied with.
It's on the
This
Don
is-
King lure.
Yeah, this is just done with a little darker. This would be a good sculpin pattern.
Got a great
Real lifelike.
texture to it, and it's very light.
Yeah, we've got another natural here, a peacock curl.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Peacock.
really look at the iridescence in the light. You know, just a
Like a
great
turkey.
material. Yeah, it provides a natural flash and almost micro barbules. You know, a really nice material, floats really well.
It's incredibly light.
Uh,
Now, what is that?
this is a zonker strip. It's nothing more than rabbit hide.
Zonker. Sounds like a
called
honker.
a zonker.
goose. Oh, it's a rabbit.
Yeah, it's rabbit
Okay.
hide.
Great. Again, really
They
light,
just
even
dye,
with the
yeah.
leather on it.
Yes. Yeah. And the last thing we have is we've got some beads.
For eyes.
For really, yeah, it can be used for eyes, but really it just kind of makes the head of the fly.
Okay.
It's just weight is
Right.
all it is.
Okay. All kind of sizes for all different weights.
Yes. You know, a lot of different colors. Those are just kind of the brass and bronze there and the copper, but they do silver, black. You know, there's we showed some of the flies before. Had like the pinks and the oranges on it.
Can you paint these?
You could, yeah, you could. There's a lot of the patterns that I tie with those are tied with those colors, and it kind of replicates a nymph style head. Like I
Sure,
said, it provides
jig
you
head.
a lot of good weight. And for materials, that's about it. But before we tie some flies, let's take a 2-minute break. We'll see you guys back here in a little bit.
Did you know 1 out of 4 Kentuckians hunt or fish? And in the course of a year, over 1 million people get out and enjoy Kentucky's waterways and go fishing.
One of the things that I think Kentucky is privileged to have is the diversity of fisheries we have in this state. And we have 20 or 21 major reservoirs, 150 public-owned lakes, probably 75,000 farm ponds. How big is that fish?
And why does Kentucky have some of the best fishing in the nation? Well, it all starts with the Fisheries Division right here in Kentucky.
There's about 90,000 miles of stream in Kentucky. We got about 330 miles, I think, of trout water in this state. So we got good trout fishing, a regionally renowned trophy brown trout fisheries, also developing a trophy rainbow trout fishery.
So many major tournaments are held in Kentucky.
We got some of the best black bass fishing in this region of the southeast. Kentucky and Barkley Lake are regionally renowned for their bass populations. Kentucky holds the world record smallmouth bass. We have the 3rd largest walleye that was caught in this country. We have one of the top 10 muskie lakes in the country in terms of catch rate. Crappie are number 2 species in Kentucky. We've got excellent crappie populations in all our reservoirs. We have bluegill. We have rock bass in a lot of our higher gradient streams. They're all good table fare fish, and we got fairly liberal limits on all these fish.
With over 400,000 acres of water and 97,000 miles of streams, plenty of room for everybody.
Our job is to serve. We work for the angling public. We're always looking for new projects that enhance fishing and boating opportunities in this state.
Hey, welcome back, guys. We're getting ready to tie a fly here. We're going to tie a bait fish pattern. But before we tie, I want to remind you guys, immediately following Fishing on the Fly is the local, regional, national, world-renowned Backwoods Outdoors, Chris's show. Make sure you stay tuned and watch it, okay? You ready to tie a fly?
Show me what we're doing.
Let's tie a fly. We're going to tie that bait fish pattern again there. If you would, you can hand me some materials, please.
I'll do it.
we've already put the gills on it. We're kind of running, we're running low on time here, so they told me to speed it up. So this is the speed tie.
Now you used a little bit of red for the gill color.
Yeah, we just used a little bit of red. We're gonna put that body in there, and we're just gonna start. This is called a high-low tie method. We're just gonna go, just like I said, high up on the upside and the bottom side of the fly, and we're gonna start working our way forward. We're gonna continue to tie this material on. You see, I'm kind of tying it at the halfway point and pulling it back. Now, this fly will look a little bulky before we actually thin it down, but I've got some shears that taper. So we're going to knock the fly down to more of kind of a thinner shad style pattern.
Yeah, they're more of a torpedo shape
Yeah.
fish. Now, how tight are you pulling that line there?
You know, this is a monocord, and it's a little heavier than your average tying thread, but you know, that's one of the things you learn in tying is how much you can pull, but you know, they still break on you. And hopefully it's not going to break on the middle of this fly here.
So that's like a monofilament line?
Yeah, this is just a monofilament line. It's actually called monocord.
You know, the one thing I'm knowing is, as I'm handing this to you, I'm noticing that there's a real good texture to this. And
Yeah.
a fish, a lot of times, they're going to want to feel
Yeah.
something decent when they grab a hold of that bait to help them.
This is a really, really fluid material in the water. I mean, this stuff just flows. It looks great in the water.
And it does have a texture to it.
Yeah, it's a nice material. Like I said, it looks lifelike in the water. We're going to do another white, then if you'll hand me a green.
Okay. And you were telling me before off camera that something about this helping the fish actually kind of realize they got something and going after it. A
Yeah,
little
this
bit
is
more, huh?
if you have a toothed style fish, this will actually get caught in their in the teeth, or you know, a lot of them necessarily don't have, you know, what we consider teeth, but they'll have that sandy gum line.
Gristle. Mhm.
Yeah, this will.
That's that good bass
this'll get in
thumb
that.
that you get. You know?
Yeah,
You always
yeah.
have to get that rough part there right
Yeah,
on your thumb from
that's
lipping
what-
those bass.
That's what this is. This does it for you. Okay, let's.
Want more
get
white?
that- No, that's the last bit of white we'll do.
Okay. You want some gray now?
A little bit of gray, and we'll finish him off.
A little silver gray.
Yeah. Like I said, this is available in a ton of colors, so you know, just tie it to whatever works in your local region. You know, whatever your local shad pattern is. I have this in some browns to kind of replicate sculpin.
What's a sculpin?
It's kind of the little bottom feeding fish. You know, they average around 3 or 4 inches long at best. I'm sure you've seen them on the bottom of like creek beds and stuff.
big
You know,
fish
like
then.
you know, some people say like creek chub. You're
Okay,
familiar with,
sure,
creek
sure,
chub?
sure.
Okay. A lot of times they're just they're a sculpin style
Okay.
little thing. You know, they're kind of that arrow shape. You know.
Gotcha.
Okay, we got him pretty much tied up there now. We're gonna trim him up a little bit. We're gonna get some of the fiber out of the way, and we're gonna take that whip finishing tool that we got out in the tool thing, and we're just gonna finish that head. We're just gonna put a knot on it.
That actually ties it for you.
Yeah, it'll tie that head. Like I said, after I'm finished with these flies, we're gonna put some eyes on it and you know, epoxy the head. But you know, as I was telling you before, I'd mentioned that my favorite material or my favorite liquid to use on flies is Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails.
No.
Oh yeah, works great on the head of a fly. We've got that miniature brush.
Oh, I got it right here.
Yeah, we've got this. This is a tortoise shell brush. So you'll see when we comb through it, this is a really, really, you know, synthetic material. So, you know, if you use a regular comb on that, the static is just going to go nuts.
Really? So this has no static?
No,
then?
and see,
Doesn't
we've got
take-
these thinning shears here. We're just going to work through the fly there real quick. We're
Now
gonna
what about length?
Thin them out a little bit. You know, on length, I typically leave my flies longer because you know, I'd rather go to a place and find out that I'm long and I can cut off than go there with a short fly and find out that the shad or the bait fish or whatever I'm imitating is 4 or 5 inches long. Now this one here, we've kind of trimmed him up a little bit. He'll be about 3 inches long when he's done. We're gonna put a little tail on him maybe. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, because you can see when how he's tapering off already.
Yeah, I've got another one here that we
little
didn't
bit
finish. It's a
there.
little longer, and you can see the gill material in there.
Yeah. So if you'd hand the vise back,
I
I'll
will.
go ahead and we'll throw some eyes on him, and he'll be finished. He'll be ready to fish.
Fish on.
You hope.
Now you put those on, they just stick
Yeah,
on. but
these
you
are
say
just
you-
these have an adhesive on them.
But you put epoxy on there.
Yes, I'll epoxy
all
them
the way
afterwards, because after a few casts or after a few fish, they have a tendency to fall off.
But the epoxy
you know,
keeps them on.
We got some eyes on them. We got a fly there. It's ready to fish. I want to thank you guys for joining us. And like I said, don't forget, Chris's show is coming up next.
Don King.
Eurasian milfoil is just one of many invasive species that are threatening our nation's fisheries. Do your part to prevent the spread of harmful invasives before it's too late. Before you leave the landing, inspect, clean, and drain your boat, motor, and live wells. Properly dispose of any invasive species you find. That includes dumping, not releasing into the water, your unused bait. Hey, remember these 3 simple steps: inspect, clean, and drain. Do your part to halt the spread of invasive species.